AI is transforming every walk of life, revolutionising industries, powering automation and driving data analysis. And Satya Nadella is Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Microsoft, the world's largest software company, which is synonymous with the evolution of computing. A highly acclaimed leader, Satya has revolutionised the company's product and its offerings and transformed its culture during his 10 years as CEO. So I'm delighted to be joined by Satya to share his perspectives on unlocking AI's potential and driving a growth mindset and culture. So Satya, thank you for joining us. You've brought Microsoft through significant transformation since you became CEO, leading up to the current technological advances driven by AI. What's been key to this transformation, and how did you bring your people and your customers on that journey?
First of all, Shamara, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's great to be with you. And you're right. I mean, to us, it's been a journey. I think that's the best way to characterize it. And I would say there have been two pillars that were the most helpful. One is a sense of purpose and mission. One of I have better language now to even talk about it, which is we essentially had a refounding moment in 2014 where we said, what is the core reason why Microsoft was founded, which was about creating technology so that others can create more technology. And so we went back to that, and now that has been very, very helpful, essentially as saying, how do we really stay on the cutting edge of technology? But ultimately, it's about translating that cutting edge of technology and parlaying that to empowering people and organizations all over the planet to achieve more. So that sense of purpose was very helpful in galvanizing our people. And then the second thing was culture. I mean, let's face it, from ancient Greece to modern Silicon Valley, there's been one thing that's brought people and civilizations down, which is hubris. And so to us, in the late 90s and early 2000s, when we became the largest market cap company, we thought we were just God's gifts to humankind, and we should have sort of more realized that, what we need to do is to become better learners. So in fact, we adopted Carol Dweck's growth mindset work, and that was very helpful as a cultural meme for us to be learn-it-alls versus know-it-alls. So I would say these two things have really helped us then get a lot of other things, Shamara. There's no question you have to get strategy and execution right ultimately, but what's a way to have a higher percentage shot at getting strategy and execution right? And I believe it's mission and culture. And so that's what I would attribute it to.
Wow, a lot of common things there, purpose and culture for people, businesses like ours. But turning now to this era of AI, we're a couple of years into it, and we're doing a lot to test and learn with this technology within Macquarie and with our clients. But what's your view on how AI has evolved, the scale of change and potential impact on organizations and on industries?
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating when you think about it. We've had these things called scaling laws really take off around 2010 or so with deep learning, where if you think about, what computing was always about, it was about Moore's law, and these scaling laws have put them on hyperdrive in some sense, right? Which is every 18 months or so, Moore's law gave us doubling of compute capacity. And scaling laws are effectively creating doubling of, I'll call it intelligence, or think of it as tokens per dollar per watt is how I think about it, every 6 months or so. And so it manifests, though, in some real fundamental breakthroughs when it comes to computing technology. The first one is it's all about the computer interface, right? 70 years of computer science has always been about, can you have computers understand us versus us having to understand computers? And finally, we have a real breakthrough because of speech, text, images, videos in and out. So that's one. The second thing is also the other 70-year journey has been about, can we reason about people, places, things, right? You increasingly digitize artifacts about people and places and things, and then you ask questions, make sense of it, try to get analytical and predictive power, and we now have a new reasoning engine, a neural reasoning engine, just like, say, we had relational databases in the past. So that's the second big breakthrough. And then the third thing is you can add memory and context. So you put all these things together, you can build products like a Copilot, like a ChatGPT, Security, or even the chat product that you have built using Azure AI Insight for self-service and surveys and other things inside of your own organization, right? So that's ultimately, I think, what is upon us. And I think pretty much every product category in digital business and everywhere that you're interfacing with customers or businesses, I think we can rethink through how these advances that are brought about by AI can change the experience.
AI is developing at such a rapid pace that many organisations are managing this careful balance between embracing the opportunity quickly and managing potential risks. So what are your thoughts on the dangers of acting too fast or acting too slow? And what's your advice to help companies adopt AI successfully?
Yeah, I think that the approach that I think that makes sense is some same approach that we are taking. I think when I look at what you're doing, it falls into sort of, I would say, three buckets, right? First is all of us learn by doing. And so the best way is for us to use in our everyday workflow the tools, right? Whether it is Copilot or what have you, which is because now these tools are like available in our consumer life. They need to be available even in our work life so that we have agency to work with AI and think with AI and really have the ability to impact the work artifact, and the workflows. That's essentially what Copilot is doing for anyone in the workplace. The second thing is what you're already doing, which is using some of these tools and technologies yourself to change the experience. So what you're doing with, for example, your own chat application I referenced earlier that you built is an example of that, which is, hey, can we take the employee self-service experience inside your own organization and change it? That's a great way to build new AI capability in there. In fact, even your use of GitHub Copilot, from what I understand, your software developers are using GitHub Copilot to be able to sort of build your own products faster and better using AI. And so that's a fantastic sort of way to go about it. And then the last thing I would say is the consideration you brought up, which is ultimately we have to make sure that we have real guardrails around anything we do. So that's where, and it's not just a set of principles we talk about, but it's principles we put into practice in the products we build. And so that's kind of what we've also done, is put a lot of tooling in place such that anyone can use those tools and processes to build AI with safety and privacy and security built in versus something that's after the fact bolted on.
And then thinking about leadership for a moment, we all lead differently, have different strengths, experiences, perspectives that we bring to our roles. So what would you say is your leadership style, and what characteristics do you also look for in leaders at Microsoft, especially as you work together to navigate this significant platform shift?
No, it's a great question. It's a question that sort of I ask myself in some sense for, in a time of great change, in a time of, where a new bar is being set. It's also appropriate even for me to ask, what's the bar of leadership? And I think of three dimensions, Shamira. One is, I think leaders by definition have the innate capability to come into a fast-changing world or an ambiguous, uncertain world and bring clarity, right? So if someone comes in and takes an uncertain situation and makes it even more confusing and uncertain, that's not leadership. So leaders have to bring clarity to ambiguous, uncertain contexts. That's the first thing I look for in myself and in my leaders. The second thing is leaders also are able to bring people together and create energy, right? So it's not leadership when someone says my team is good or everybody else around me is not sucks. That's not leadership. If you can really bring, in fact, a multi-constituent team, some inside the organization, some even outside the organization, and really drive energy across, that's real leadership. And then the third is, of course, none of us can, say, look, let's wait for the perfect pitch to go and show our skill. We have to, go and play in the field that we're given. In other words, we are dealing with over-constrained problems. And as leaders, we know how to unconstrain ourselves. And I think that problem-solving skills in order to be able to achieve success is, I think, again, a very important attribute. So I would say those are the three things I think about: creating clarity, generating energy, and ultimately delivering success is what I think all of us are measured on.
And just one last quick question. Can you share with us a couple of your daily habits related to AI and how you get value from them?
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. One of my favorite prompts to Copilot, when I go into a meeting and people have submitted documents or what have you, is I turn any document into an FAQ. It's kind of like the best. So you can ask it to summarize, that's great, but the most sort of critical analysis I've found is when you take anything that you've been submitted that you should be doing pre-reading on, you turn it into FAQ. It's probably the best, fastest way to grasp anything going into a meeting. So that's a big hack I have. The other one is in Outlook, Copilot now essentially labels every piece of email for me and gives me what the mail is about. It's kind of priority inbox. And to me, that is just now every morning when I get up at 5:30, it's got these blue lines across my mail. It just draws attention to things that matter because let's face it, email triage does take a lot of time. It is what I live in every day. And so these two things, right, getting ready for meetings in a better way and being more critically, I'll call it prepared, and then being able to triage my mail, knowing my priorities is fantastic.
So thank you so much for joining us today. We know how precious your time is, and it's been hugely valuable for all of us to hear those insightful perspectives from you.
No, thank you so much for the opportunity.